Gen Z isn't socially awkward. You're just annoying. The Gen Z stare. I went down a rabbit hole of the Gen Z stare, okay? I didn't know this existed at all until I was at work one day. And I was, just doing my work. A customer comes up to me. He asks, hey, can you help me find something? I'm like, sure. Like, what is it? What do you need me to help you with? Like, what's your question? Yeah, I can help you. And he just says, thank you so much for answering. And I just kind of stand there and I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. Like, I was so confused because I was like, what do you mean thank you for answering? Like, yes, I answered. That's how you're supposed to do it. And then like a couple weeks later, I was on YouTube and I was scrolling and I watched a video about like the Gen Z stare or whatever. And I realized that he said that to me because he thought that I was just gonna stare at him instead of answering. I didn't know this existed. I genuinely did not know this existed. Like Gen Z just like literally like when you ask them a question like, oh hey, can you help me find something? They just stare at you like answer. What the heck? Why do we do this? Genuinely, why do we do this? What the heck?
Watching all of the like older generations or even anyone in general talking about the Gen Z stare, specifically in customer service environments, saying that we don't really know how to talk to people, we can't communicate. And no, we can communicate quite well actually. You're just stupid.
Yeah, you can take whichever.
Oh, Gen Z just does the Gen Z stare. They don't know how to talk to people. Fair. A lot of Gen Z don't know how to talk to people. But a lot of older generations talk too much, too rudely, and too proudly while being too stupid.
It's time! Gen Z finally has their thing! Well, I mean, allegedly. And it's been a long time coming. We've been waiting for this for a minute. Like, we've had the boomer confusion, the boomer anger, the Gen X rise and Gen X grease, the millennial cringe and the millennial pause. And now, my friends, it is Gen Z's turn. And today, we're talking about the, drumroll please, the Gen Z stare. Hey guys, what's up? It's Emergency and welcome back to my channel. Today, we are talking about the...
How long ago was this? Blah, blah, blah. 7 months ago.
Gen Z stare.
I look, you just like watching videos that interest me, to be honest. I really don't look at how long these were uploaded. I don't, but like, oh, we're all learning together, chat.
Bruh, I just seen somebody coin the term Gen Z stare, and I'm so glad somebody gave it a term because the way some people in our generation act, it's like we cracked the old generations talking about the lead paint stare, but a lot of y'all have that same exact vibe.
And if this is your first time hearing about the Gen Z stare, then I truly applaud you for staying off of TikTok because it has been the source of discourse for the past 2 weeks. But if you're unfamiliar, people across social media have been talking about this Gen Z phenomenon, specifically dissecting the way that Gen Z or young people socially interact in public and especially in service interactions. And the gag of this whole discourse is that a lot of people in Gen Z weren't even aware that this was necessarily even a thing. I mean, you can even see the results here in this poll that I had on my channel, and you know we got a good Gen Z audience here, okay? And here's the thing, I feel like there are a couple of things going on in this discourse right now that are making it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, because there's been a lot of back and forth online as to what exactly the Gen Z stare means. What are people talking about when they say that Gen Z has a problem with staring or just like not really keeping up socially, and where specifically is this happening? Because I've been watching this conversation evolve over the past couple of weeks, and it really seems that like what we as Gen Z are taking this conversation to mean is different from what older generations are claiming the Gen Z stare is, when in reality I feel like both are kind of getting at the same underlying issue. So in this video we're going to be talking about the Gen Z stare, whether it has any validity, whether or not it's an actual thing, and getting to the bottom of whether Gen Z is actually socially awkward or if the rest of the world is just that annoying. So I guess to start this conversation off, let's actually start by defining and figuring out what the Gen Z stare or the Gen Z gaze actually is. Wait, hold on, not Gen Z gaze.
Bro, what?
Okay, mandatory cutscene aside, finding exactly what the Gen Z stare is has been pretty much the biggest topic of debate here, with older generations claiming it as being the blank middle distance stare into the void often employed by Gen Z folk, with it often being used in settings where you're being asked a question or just when you're expected to exchange pleasantries. So like think you're sitting on a bus or like a train station and someone comes up and someone sitting next to you is like, oh hey, how are you doing? And the reply is or older gens have been defining it as a young person staring into nowhere as you attempt to communicate with them, essentially alluding to the fact that
okay, I do that. Like, okay, but here's the thing with me. Like, when I'm at work, someone, like, let's say a customer asks me a question, like, hey, where's bread? I kind of think, I stare, I'm like, because I'm thinking about where it's at. I'm like, oh, that would be blank aisle. Like, that would be blank aisle. Like, I don't stare at them, but I'm just kind of staring off. I'm like thinking, I'm like, but I don't just stand there. Like, I like, let me think, like, I kind of look around, I'm like, I don't just stand there. I don't do that.
Gen Z is kind of awkward and doesn't really have the social skills to hold the conversation, to have small talk, or really operate in a society socially.
Everyone's been explaining the Gen Z stare wrong, and I wanted to do it because my coworker did it to me literally an hour ago, and this is actually what it is. Hey, this is so-and-so. I wanted you guys to exchange numbers because we just need to be in contact about certain things. Can you exchange numbers? Is that okay? Like, do you want to do that? Or you can just give her my number. Right, yes, actually, yeah, I could do that. I just want to make sure it was okay. Like, I had your permission. Yeah, that's fine. You can just give her my number because you have it
I think
already.
it's just like they're thinking. They're like, without like saying anything, like they're thinking. I think, yeah.
And the issue here is really twofold because this conversation just started off as being really disjointed. Like we're all arguing about different things here. Like on one hand, you have a group of people, that group of people being like millennials and older, talking about how Gen Z is incredibly socially awkward, stunted, and doesn't know how to participate or engage in regular conversations, as well as small talk, and usually extends or cites this as being commonplace either at work or out in public. Then you have many of us in Gen Z that have heard this conversation and taken it as those instances in customer service where you have these people, usually older people like the millennials plus, either asking self-explanatory questions, making ridiculous comments or banter, or treating the checkout card reader like it's a 40-colored Rubik's Cube. And that's also very valid, and we're going to talk about both of these things. But the thing is, and mind you, I'm always going to ride for us as Gen Z, but I feel like in terms of this conversation, we're starting to miss the point just a little bit, because unfortunately, I do think that there are points to be made here. And we need to dive into each of these arguments to understand, for one, where they're coming from, and two, whether or not these are valid at all. Okay, let's start this off by talking about what the older generations are talking about when it comes to things like social anxiety and social skills in Gen Z. And one thing that they're citing is the phenomenon of young people not knowing how to start or initiate conversations, i.e. staring at servers when they ask you how your day's going, or if they can get anything.
That's not a part of the script. That's not a part of the script. If I'm at a restaurant, okay, and a server comes up to me and they're like, are you ready to order? And I'm like, yes, I know what I need to order. Like, I've practiced it a bunch of times. Like, I know what I'm going to order, okay? I order. And then they ask me, but how was your day, by the way? I already said my piece. I said my piece. You can't disrupt the script that I've already had in my head. Cause like no. Can't do that to me, bro. Or like, how have you guys been? Like, I know it's fine. It's just like most of the time I don't expect it, so I don't know how to respond. So I'm like, yeah, fine. How was your day? I don't know. I also hate small talk. I really don't like small talk. I just don't like small talk. But like, that's not my fault. Okay.
Started for you when you get a phone call, waiting until the person who called you says something first.
I had a call with I set up a call with someone, okay, and they were like, okay, we can call at like 1 or 2 p.m. or whatever. And I was like, okay, 1's perfect. I was in waiting mode. I was sitting, just waiting. Like I had my phone in front of me and I literally was just staring at it. I was just staring at it, waiting for them to call me. For some reason, when I think about calling someone, I get so nervous. But like, as soon as I pick up the phone and I call, like, it's like, I'm just like, it's fine. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But I don't know, I just get a little bit of like anxiety, like, oh my God, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to do the wrong thing. But it's literally, it's not that bad. Like, it's not that bad. But I was in waiting mode for like, we called like 1:30, but he took like 30 minutes to call me. And I literally was just sitting there staring at my phone. Like, I was just staring at it for 30 minutes. Cause I was like, I was just waiting for him to call. Yeah.
And other just small talk interactions.
Welcome in. How is everyone tonight? Can I get you started with something to drink?
My dog keeps barking. Bro! Bruh.
Do you need a minute? I can give you a minute. Take your time.
And I think this is coming down to a lot of the issues in our generation that we've spoken about quite a few times on this channel before, where I think like on the purely social aspect of just like giving pleasantries to people or just like responding to a hello should be something that we're more comfortable with doing. Like, I feel like that should be a good baseline. But we should take a little bit of accountability in the fact that like, yeah, social skills or at least socializing holistically in our generation looks a little bit different from other generations.
Yeah, because
and a lot of you might
grown
not
up
like
with
to hear this,
technology.
but like a good portion of that can be attributed to the way in which the majority of us were socialized or not socialized growing up. And we're going to get into a little bit more of that later. And this isn't necessarily a slight to us saying that we're like some kind of social pariah, but I do think inherently there is a certain level of avoidance in these sets of specific social interactions. And I'm not saying generally, because we're going to get into the Gen Z side of the argument. I think a lot of the criticism, I think a lot of the things that we've been saying are like problems are for sure problems. But I think just for saying hello or like things that kind of require you to respond socially does raise some eyebrows. And this is coming from someone that gets social anxiety bad, okay? And this sort of social behavior is something that we've seen a couple of times in like major online conversations, because we do tend to navigate spaces, at least online, from a place of distance and almost detachment. Like, it goes back to that whole conversation that was on social media a couple months back where people were talking about whether or not you were owed a hello from a cashier. You remember that conversation? There was this large sentiment of like not being entitled to someone's time or conversation, which in some cases is very true, but also in that same breath, we do have to acknowledge that that is in contrast and in conflict with a lot of our pleas for connection and community in our day-to-day lives. And I think that piece is what's contributing to the disconnect in this conversation, because I do think that it's okay to be socially anxious. Like, I'm a baddie with social anxiety. Like, what's that Wendy clip? Shout out to y'all with social anxiety. I gotta feel bad for y'all. Like,
shout out to everybody with social anxiety. I kind of feel sorry for you.
Bro, that's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah.
it's completely fine to be
Yeah.
socially anxious, and it's understandable to be socially avoidant, but you can't be both of those things and not work.
It's just I think it's because of COVID, right? Because I think I was like, I got COVID, not got COVID, but like I was out of school in like 6th grade, and that's the time where you kind of figure out like your social cues and stuff, but I didn't have that. And I feel like my generation, like, they missed a bunch of stuff because of COVID, kind of social isolation. Everyone was online, you know, and also like the younger generation, like below us, I don't know what, the Gen Alpha or whatever, they also had quarantine at like a young age, so that's definitely a factor in it. Because, you know, we were kind of forced to separate and not be in too close to each other. So, yeah. If my dog barks one more time,
working on either, and also expect connection and community from others, because again, that kind of goes against that whole principle of like not owing anyone anything. And unfortunately, there are actually numbers to support the fact that like our lack of socialism of having an impact on the world around us. In an article from the New York Post talking about the Gen Z gaze or the Gen Z stare, they say that many rejected the notion that just because a job isn't great doesn't mean you shouldn't be greeting customers. With someone from one of the older generations saying, "I remember the first time a friend told me she didn't think customers were owed friendliness, just a mind-boggling mindset," one person shared. is just so insidious, and I really don't think people realize they're infected with it. Work is so much better for everyone when you're making an effort. So we aren't just seeing this on a customer service level. And I have some thoughts on the customer service aspect of this conversation, which we're going to get into when we talk about Gen Z's approach to the Gen Z stare debate or whatever. But this isn't just a thing exclusive to customer service, because there's also a study about Gen Z in the office talking about things like small talk and how we've kind of killed small talk in the office. According to the study, the art of small talk is dying out because younger workers feel more comfortable communicating online, according to research. A poll of 2,000 employees found that 74% struggle to make light conversations with coworkers in the kitchen and elevator. With Gen Z leading with 40% of its employees feeling this way, millennials coming in second with 33%, and 24% of Gen X. So while if you've seen any of my Gen Z videos before, you know that I'm not a fan of the whole like Gen Z is ruining everything discourse, especially when it comes to the workplace, because I think a lot of it is kind of dramatized and sensationalized and ultimately does end up harming Gen Z more than it does like educating the populace. But I think an explanation for this that a lot of people for some reason just like don't really acknowledge as being valid is that for at least the workplace, when it comes to things like being socially awkward or like lacking these social skills, is the whole concept of remote and hybrid work kind of being the norm for a lot of Gen Z when they enter the workplace. A lot of people underplay a lot of things about the pandemic, but one thing especially that they underplay is the impact that that had socially and developmentally for a whole generation of people that were just coming of age, whether that be in the workforce, whether that be as new adults, high schoolers, and for some of us even middle schoolers. Like we really spent our formative years in Zoom calls, where oftentimes participation and responses were optional. So when you go through that during your developmental stages and that becomes more normal, of course, like when you grow up or go into different settings, that's going to impact how you show up in the world. So you can't necessarily put all the blame for people, at least on the workspace, for a work culture that they did not grow up in or have experience with. Now, what I will say, because I see a lot of my older generation viewers getting a little frustrated with me being like, oh, this isn't unique to y'all, everyone's had to go through their own thing. I will say, I do think that we as Gen Z need to put a little bit more effort in to correct that behavior, because I think a lot of times in these conversations, we address and we understand where it's coming from. You know, like most things, an explanation is not an excuse. And there isn't as much conversation around changing the narrative or changing the actual behaviors to cause people to paint these narratives. So I think what the challenge is for us, which I will say is not fair and sucks. It sucks. It's not optimal at all, which is really unfortunate. But the challenge for us is going to have to be becoming more comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially in these social interactions. And before I get jumped from people with extreme or extenuating cases where they're either at their wit's end or have other contributing factors as to why social interactions are a little bit more awkward or a little bit more difficult for them, I don't mean this to be widely applicable to every single case, but for your average person, it would not be death-inducing to venture outside of what is considered to be comfortable socially and trudge through small talk. Now, with that said, older gens, we do have to have a talk. We do have to have a talk. We do have to have a conversation, because this conversation, like I said, is twofold. Y'all had us in the first half. The second half, we do have some things we need to talk about and address. Well, yes, Gen Z does have a problem with staring and not responding to things when it comes to small talk and stuff like that. There are also a sect of people calling the Gen Z stare just a lack of general customer service and not responding to your every question and not making you feel like the customer is always right. And this doesn't even have to be in a customer setting. This can be in just like an interpersonal conversation. And this is, for one, not something that is unique to Gen Z. I just think for some reason when young people do it, it is taken as like,
I feel like when I go into, like when I step into my place of work, I turn into like a different person. Like most of the time, yes, I am very like quiet and stuff, but like when it comes to customer service, you have to talk. Like you have to interact with people, you have to answer the questions, you have to like I feel like I'm a lot more like outgoing when I'm at work. And then when I'm kind of like by myself or even sometimes with friends, I'm very quiet and stuff. But I will say, oh my God, that came out my nose. Do you ever have it where you have like an energy drink or like soda or whatever, and then you burp and it like stings your nose? That just happened to me, bro. Oh my God, I'm tearing up. But what was I saying? Like if I'm at like a restaurant, right, and I'm with my friends, and like the server comes up to us and he's like, oh, like, do you need more time, or are you ready to order? Like I'm usually the person that's like, we're ready to order or we need more time, because like I'm not just gonna stare at, like I don't want to waste anyone's time, so I'm just gonna be like I look at my friend, I'm like, do you need more time? No? Okay, we can order. Yes? Okay, yes. Like most of the time I feel like I try and like not waste the server's time, not just stare at them. Like I make a conscious effort to try and like say everything I need to say, answer their questions, ask questions, you know, whatever. But I still get nervous ordering stuff. But you know, I grew up in a household that was like, well, if you wanna get something done, you gotta ask them. You gotta go ask them. Go order your stuff. When I was little, that's what my parents would do. Like, my family has a big thing with like, if you have your own money and you would like to spend it, but you have a question or whatever, or you just want to like order, you have to order it. You have to do it. So like if I wanted to buy a toy, right? And I asked my parents a question like, oh, like, does this come with batteries? Do you know if this comes with batteries? No, I don't. Ask someone, and you have to ask because you want to buy it. So you have to ask. If you want to ask, if you want to get something done, you have to do it yourself. And I feel like that was nice when I was a kid, because I still get nervous when I order stuff, but like at least I try not to just like stare at them and just be yeah.
The sensational thing, because sometimes the things that y'all say and questions y'all ask simply deserve nothing more than a stare, because what do you mean? Do you have no shame? In a quote from the New York Post, naturally many service workers who are guilty of the Gen Z gaze defended themselves and reminded the internet that their jobs suck. No disrespect, but if you have to deal with the insane amount of absolutely effing brain dead people you've met in your life for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you would do this, and people have been doing this since jobs as a concept were invented, wrote one person on X. But people really underestimate the types of questions or just comments that people make on a day-to-day basis that do not warrant anything but a stare. Because if you respond the way you want to respond to that question or comment, you are then in the wrong. So all you can do is... Like, there's so many story times online about some excruciatingly stupid interactions coming from customers just because they believe that the customer is always right. Like, we see this all the time. And like, the fact of the matter is, for like that aspect of the conversation, like most people aren't being paid enough to deal with all of that on a day-to-day basis. Like, I know that's their job and I know that's what they're hired to do, but like, it's not enough. They're not getting paid enough to deal with all of that, okay?
Right, that's me making candles. He walks in on the phone. He's like, yeah, I'll send it over to you. Yeah, no, I'll just send it over to you. Yeah. No, I'll send it over to you. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's pointless to even try to greet this person because they're not even gonna notice that I'm there, right? He comes right up to the counter and he goes, any gum? You got any gum here? And I go, gum? No, I don't think so. He goes, no gum at a store? I go, no, we don't have gum. He goes,
what?
Tic Tac? I go, no, sorry, no gum, no Tic Tacs. He goes, well, I have a meeting. Do you have gum? What? And then he goes over to the candy section, right? The infamous Hi Chew section, and he goes, Hi Chew, as if that's
gum?
Something?
That's not gum.
Yeah, Hi Chew. He goes, as if to be like, I caught you. You're a dummy at your job. I found
Hi Chew isn't gum.
And let me tell you something. People are always quick to call Gen Z entitled. They're so quick to be like, oh, Gen Z is so entitled to this and that. But we need to also have the conversation about how there's also a rising entitlement in older generations as well. Like, everyone feels really entitled. And this goes mostly for Gen X and boomers. Like, millennials, sister, I love you. Don't get it twisted. I know you've been mentioned a couple times, but Gen Z and millennials, we go together real bad. I think... yeah, a lot of people in the older generations have a life where at some point they're able to afford a house, kids, and an education all with one job, and it didn't even have to be super high paying. Now for most of us, and this isn't just a Gen Z thing, I think that Gen Z just feels it more because this is all we got and we're newer entering all this. We don't and can't aspire to those same things anymore. So yeah, people aren't going to be as invested in their job because they know the job is going to help them get by, but it's not going to help them get the life that they want, because most people's single jobs don't pay for a living wage or for the lifestyle they need anymore.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I just wanted to get a decaf Vietnamese iced coffee with oat milk, if that's all right.
So we actually don't have any decaf coffee, and I can also only do the Vietnamese with sweetened condensed milk.
Okay, I mean, like, I always, like, come in and order, like, the same thing. So, like, and they've done decaf for me before, so I just, like, would really like a decaf Vietnamese iced coffee with oat milk. I just don't understand, like, I have ordered that before here.
Right, so we've never
had decaf coffee, but I have gotten it before multiple times.
Hear me out. Level 1, level 4. I don't even know if I can get to level 4. Level 1, super little.
So.
My researcher wanted to add a little note in the video where she points out that she personally has worked in service and retail jobs throughout her life, and she feels like she always turns into a customer service robot whenever she's on the clock to lock in.
Yeah.
Like, this meme is really her.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember working once. I clocked in. I will black out as the spirit of customer service possess my mortal body once again. Please. But now that we
Dude, I work at a grocery store and I help customers like find stuff in it. And there's been so many times where like customer like asks me for something and I'm like, oh, I don't know where that is, or like I haven't seen that before. And then I have like an app that I look it up and I look up the product and stuff and it shows me which aisle it's in. And then we go down the aisle and I still can't find it. And I'm like, we might be out, like, but we're probably out of it. I don't see it anywhere. Yeah. But I bought it here before. No, my son bought it here like last week. So we might be out. We're probably out of it. I mean, you can go find it. You can go look for it. I don't know. I've never seen it before, or I've seen it before and we might be out. Can you go check the back? Yeah, I'll go check the back. Yeah. So we are out of it. Yeah, we are out of it. But my son's bought it here before. We're out of it. Goodbye. I just walk away. Yeah, okay. Bye. Have a good day. Yeah, I don't. Yes, your son has bought it here before. Yes, you've bought it here before, but we're out. I can't just magically make it appear in my hand. I've looked in the back, showed you where it's at. Sometimes I even show them like the tag specifically. Look, it's out. There's nothing on the shelf. I'm sorry. I don't know what you want me to do.
heard both sides. Let's kind of talk about the nuances within them and kind of where they intersect. And the first way we're going to do this is talking about the compulsory social interactions that are required of a society. Like, I think in life and in an optimal society, there are a lot of mandatory cutscenes that you got to get through. A lot of small talk, a lot of seemingly meaningless conversations you have to have. And those are important. They don't always feel like they are, and they don't always feel great to have, but they are important to maintaining a society. And I think that the more we stray from that and the more we kind of demonize small talk, that's sort of been like a topic of conversation for like the past however many years. People making it their personality to hate small talk. Like, oh my God, I hate small talk. I hate talking about nothing and not having substantive conversations, as if those two are like mutually exclusive things. Like, I think the whole thing of small talk is to sort of find that common ground where you can talk about the things that are deeper, and it doesn't always have to be one or the other. And I think that when we start thinking more black and white that way and start distancing ourselves from having small talk or just having conversations altogether, the more individualized and isolated our society gets. Because yes, we do owe people common decency. It is the truth that people in your day-to-day life are your fellow community members, and a little hey, how you're doing, and or responding to that does go a long way. And this is sort of that accountability piece where I do think that Gen Z needs to work on this generally. Like, of course, like, Gen Z isn't a monolith. Most generations aren't monoliths. But I think when it comes to these general feelings of lack of community, lack of connection, and this loneliness epidemic that we keep talking about, we have to, one, ask ourselves, how are our actions contributing to this? And two, acknowledge the fact that, like, yeah, asking someone who's taking your order in line, or someone you're just sitting next to, or someone you're like awkwardly in an elevator with, how their day is, or just saying hello, won't kill you and may in fact actually just make both of y'all's lives better. Or like, these little sweet social nothings are important to not only building community, but also just for developing more pro-social behaviors.
The COVID divide in Gen Z has not been more obvious than with this Gen Z stare conversation. One,
that was good.
Y'all, the lack of comprehension is jumping out so hard with the amount of people who are like, no, I'm staring at you because you're stupid. You asked me a dumb question while I was at my customer service shop. That's not what anybody's talking about. That's not, and if you had comprehension skills, you would be able to tell, right? But also the whole, oh, well, I don't owe anybody a conversation. I don't owe you small talk. But also, I want to build community. Why can't I build community? And simultaneously, I'm scared to make a phone call because I have anxiety. Or I don't say hello when I pick up the phone That's not my job. I don't owe you a greeting.
And y'all know I love to add a little figure to my claims. Like there's actually some science supporting the fact that like small talk and like conversing with people, even in these seemingly insignificant places, does have a positive impact on your health. There was an experiment done years ago in the Journal of Experimental Psychology where Chicago Metro train commuters were instructed to either have conversations with people who sat next to them or to just sit in silence and enjoy their solitude. And another group was kind of instructed to just like do whatever came naturally to them. And the research found, according to this cut article, that of the three groups, those in the conversation condition reported the most positive train ride, and those in the solitude condition reported the most negative. Among those who talked, the longer the conversation, the better the ride. So while this doesn't show cut and dry that like, yeah, talking to people always makes your life 100% better, there have been some experiments done to support the notion that like, yeah, talking to people and engaging in conversation does make you feel better. And I think in a society where people are increasingly lonely and are increasingly lacking that form of connection in their day-to-day lives, that could mean the world. And kind of on that point and expanding on something that I said a little bit earlier in this video when it comes to like owing people things and the whole notion of like community and like loneliness and all that, I do think that it's really contradictory for people to feel like they owe people nothing. Like I really don't like that whole notion, that whole conversation talking point that like, we don't owe people this, we don't owe people that, we owe people nothing. Like I think that it bothers me because of the contradiction. Like to feel like we owe each other nothing, but to also expect so much of others when it comes to things like community, accountability, and grace. Like we see this all the time with the way the internet culture has evolved to become more so punitive of people. Like if none of us truly owe anyone anything, then we also can't expect people to owe us any grace when we do mess up or we are having a hard time. Nor can we expect any accountability from people we do or don't know. Because with the logic of us not owing each other anything, they don't owe us that either. And that extreme concept of detachment and not owing each other anything is just super individualistic and is the antithesis of community. Like you really can't have it both ways. And I'm not saying that it's okay to like not have accountability and not give people grace and all that when it comes to like not owing people things. I'm just saying that, yeah, again, you can't have it both ways. And in my opinion, we should at least owe each other some level of decency, some level of kindness, because those are both so necessary for the community that we say that we yearn for so much.
I bet you expect other people to respect the fact that you don't owe them anything. Well, they don't owe you the respect of them not owing you anything, because they don't owe you anything either. Yes, it is true that you are owed nothing, but it also means that you are owed nothing. So you don't get to be mad or annoyed by anything anyone ever does, ever, including talking about the Gen Z stare, because you don't get to have an expectation that people will not talk about the Gen Z stare. And this also means you are not owed being welcome in society. So if you're not willing to do what society has deemed is the bare minimum to be a society, which in general is just like acknowledging and treating other human beings as human beings.
And really quick, let's take a break from like the whole accountability piece for a second and talk about this need to identify generational quirks. Because when we talk about the Gen Z stare, we talk about all the other generational quirks that have been going on for other generations. Like we have to talk about like, why do we do that? Like why is that a thing? Like I said before, the millennial pause, the Gen Z shade, the Gen X entitlement, and so on and so on. Like I feel like online we itch, we urge, we want to catapult ourselves.
Yeah, we want to put them all in different categories and show, well, my generation doesn't do this, so that means that we are superior to this other generation, when no one really cares. Nobody really cares.
And to having these hallmark generational identifiers for each other that seem to explain or like point out behavior, and I'm just like, why? And like, not to pull out like the woe is us card, but like for Gen Z, it just feels like Gen Z's quirks are always so harmful, and it also are just generally used against us in real life. Like I feel like for all the other generational quirks, like it's very haha hee hee, or like something that's like memed on, but like for Gen Z's quirks, it's like actually taken seriously and used against us in like physical ways. Like millennials get called cringe and told that they don't know how to start talking when they start a video on time. Gen X gets called angry, okay? But Gen Z gets called lazy and socially inept. Hello? Like I get calling stuff out for the funnies, for and gigs of it all, but like the difference here is like the whole conversation about punching up versus punching down. Like, you know, like the older you are, the more social capital and like general capital you have in the world. So it's not like we're calling Gen X angry. Oops. Oh well, y'all got your whole lives together, but like, and that doesn't really affect them in any substantial way because we don't really hold power in society yet the same way that the older generations do. But like when Gen Z gets called lazy and like socially awkward and hard to work with and stuff like that, that physically impacts our actual job possibilities. And there's just like so much evidence of this happening in real life, of people not wanting to hire Gen Z, Gen Z being the first to get fired when it comes to layoffs and stuff because they are hard to work with, whether or not the actual employees that they are employing or firing are hard to work with themselves, or whether or not they're just Gen Z and they think like, oh, Gen Z is hard to work with, so let's get rid of them. Again, Whole video talking about that if you want to check that out, which is why I want to have this conversation, because I think like people really get these narratives and run with them and actually act upon them, which then makes the situation harder for us. And I know, a big counter argument to this whole thing is going to be the whole, well, who set the system up of it all, which real, we kind of did do that. We kind of did start the whole generational trend identifier thing on social media and labeling and generational. And that's fine. Actually, now that I say it, I kind of feel like that one clip of Wendy Williams.
I would ask you to respect our privacy, but please, I don't respect people's privacy. That's why I do the hot topics.
Right. Okay, to close off this video, because I feel like we've been talking about the Gen Z stare entirely too long, to get on my soapbox a little bit and talk about the disillusionment within Gen Z right now. So when it comes to like Gen Z not wanting to interact, not wanting to do the whole thing, we do have to acknowledge there is something to be said about the rising resentment in Gen Z. Like, no, the majority of us can't just buckle down with one job and expect all of our ends to meet anymore. Due to our country's socioeconomic situation right now, we're the Jaden Smith, we aren't given the life that we were promised as kids, as many generations aren't before. But you know, as time goes on, things just tend to get worse. And God forbid we're rightfully disillusioned with adulthood, okay? Because it feels like we won't be able to afford anything ever.
Not to even talk about the terrible job market that we're in, that's been the worst in recent history. And the fact that so many people rely on multiple part-time side gigs, or just stuck and are violently unhappy at their full-time jobs because the job market is so bad that they're afraid to leave their job.
Like, it's a lose-lose for young professionals right now, and that's kind of sad. And to put everything in perspective, $100,000 with no dependents in 5 of California's counties is still considered to be low income. So if that's telling you anything about where we are, and I know that this is a very specific and niche part of the country, that is saying something. And if Gen Z is collectively working more jobs and potentially more hours and trying to upkeep all of that, along with any semblance of a social life just to survive, I can understand why a lot of young people aren't the happiest about clocking in every day. And again, this isn't to excuse the lack of social behavior, it is to inform and explain it. So maybe there can be some empathy in both ways while we're working on that, because everyone's burnt out. With that said though, again, as a generation, if we want to beat the Gen Z stare allegations, despite it all, we should look to become more comfortable with small talk and engaging in these small pleasantries and just conversations. But like older generations, I love y'all, but let's also try not to make it weird. Because at the end of the day, we all want connection, we all want community, and I think we really do need to start being nicer to each other. Or don't, I don't care.